Breakaway Super Tuesday night. I'm David. I got my co-host here with me, Gentry, Kevin. What's going on, guys?
Howdy, howdy. Great to be here.
Howdy, howdy, ho. Super excited for this.
So much happened today, huh? From like the meta blackouts, which is just so weird for it to happen on Super Tuesday. You got the SCOTUS ruling yesterday, which was unanimous. I thought it was gonna be like 7-2, and it ended up being 9-0, which is just shows how ridiculous what the Democrat Secretary of State's tried to do. It's crazy. I mean, like, they don't want to go against Trump, so they're willing to do everything, and it's kind of scary to like what degree they'll go to. But nonetheless, Super Tuesday. So here we are live. It's a special edition. We're gonna look at some exit polls. We're gonna look at different things that are happening. We're gonna have a couple polls closing here in like 20-30 minutes or so. So I'm sure it'll be another record breaker. One punch, like Trump wins in less than a minute. But to me, fellas, I just want to know before like the night even starts, if Nikki Haley still stays around, even after the Supreme Court's ruling. And if you don't know what happened, the Supreme Court basically unanimously ruled that Trump has the right to be on all ballots. They cannot take him off of it. So that's that kind of plan that she might have had, that's no longer existent. If she loses every single state today, what is she going to do? Is she going to stick around? If she does, why? What do you guys think?
Gentry, what are your thoughts?
So truthfully, I actually want her to stay in for as long as possible. And here's why. She's getting we know this, she's getting a whole bunch of funding from the left, right? One of her big donors is Reid Hoffman. He's the founder of LinkedIn. He also went to Epstein Island. And I think that him and his cohort, they need to keep her in. She's not going to win, right? But they're going to just dry her out. Her war chest has got to be pretty low right now. And strategically, like, my thought process is, if they spend all the money on her, they're not going to be able to spend a lot of money on the Democratic general, right? So, like, strategically, I want her to stay in. It makes for really good content, and we can bleed that war chest dry.
See, but the thing is that's so sad is these are people that are having their money absolutely wasted. This is money that could be going to, the thing that's sad about it is, I think you have a point, Gentry, but this is money that could be going to like actual things that are of importance. I remember back in 2020 during the Democrat primary, we had Bloomberg, who spent more than anybody else in the history of campaigns, and it ended up being like $2 billion or several $1 billion or something. It was an absurd amount of money, just like Nikki Haley's doing. Nikki Haley is spending an absurd amount of money for what we know is a losing race. It's a sad state of our society when we have an economy that's currently in the state that it's in, and we have people wasting money in this way on campaigns and elections for that are bound to lose. So what's going to happen if Nikki Haley stays in after this? Well, it just shows. I mean, she's the swamp candidate, and she's banking on the idea that maybe Trump would go to prison, and maybe that would have him get kicked out, and maybe, like, it's so many maybes, and it's a bird brain decision. Bird brain Haley. That's how we got to look at it.
Well, that's her nickname. But my concern, though, is that they're trying to like prove a point or something like this. Because I mean, if you do look at like the elections, 30%, 40% in some cases do end up voting for Nikki. So it almost seems like they're trying to say, hey, listen, there's a sort of chunk of Republicans that may not be on board with President or former President Trump. And I'm worried that the longer that she campaigns and sticks around, even if she has absolutely no path whatsoever, it's just going to keep hurting the Republican movement, like the actual movement to get the presidency, because she's literally a Democrat surrogate. You know what I mean? She's literally saying everything that the Democrat wants. She keeps saying that Trump spent way too much money, that it's chaos. She keeps hitting him in the age. And you, like, if you take out the fact that she's a Republican, you're like, whoa, hold up a second. That's exactly what the Democrats are saying. And the longer she's in this race, the better. It's like Biden doesn't even need to come out of the basement anymore. He has Nikki Haley doing everything for him. And it's coming from inside the Republican Party, which I think is the scariest and worst part about this.
Absolutely. And to build off that a little bit, David, Gentry, I think you can pull it up. I just sent a clip that's from Twitter. Actually, well, it's from like, I think MSNBC, of Gavin Newsom. A lot of people saw this clip. I think we might have even posted it on our Breakaway page, or at least some of us have posted it. But it's important to bring up as we look at Super Tuesdays, we look at Nikki Haley, and this is, if you can pull it up, Gentry, it'd be awesome. Yeah, this is Gavin Newsom talking about Nikki Haley on one of the like Sunday morning future shows of some kind, with some lefties. Let's get this pulled up here, and everybody can see exactly what he had to say about Nikki Haley not too long ago.
It's coming up.
Sweet.
So it's a little delay. Oh, look at that. He said exactly what I said.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. But everybody should hear it.
I think she's one of our better surrogates. So I hope she stays in. Hope she does well tomorrow.
All the nasty stuff she says about Trump.
She's spot on 99% of it. So I'm enjoying this primary, and I hope it continues. So I wish her luck. But look, Trump's the nominee. We all know that. You know that. Everybody out there knows that. And I think the polls are suggestive. She's going to get well up tomorrow. And then she'll make a case, I guess, just to continue in this. But again, I've no problem with her continuing for as long as she wishes, because I think she's making a good case against Trump.
Head-to-head polls suggest that she would clean Biden's clock. Yeah. And it's a tougher race.
Trump's the nominee. Everybody knows Trump's the nominee.
So
there's not a state that, with respect, there's no evidence to suggest, there's no polling to suggest, there's nothing to suggest, momentum or otherwise, that she can win any state in the Republican primary coming up. So it's just not. Donald Trump is the nominee. Everybody knows that. No, I don't mean that to be dismissive. I have respect for the former governor, a lot more than the former president, Donald Trump. But as I said, I wish her luck. In the context of being out there and making the case that we're making against Donald Trump equally.
Yeah. So that's the exact point right there, is that we want her to drop out for that exact reason, that she would have to make the Democrats actually go out and defend Biden's agendas, Biden's policies and everything. And the fact that he'll be president if he gets elected for another 4 years. If you think it's bad now, imagine like the last 2 years, we've significantly seen a decline from where he already was, which was a decline from where he was previously. So imagine what another 4 years would do. And we can't imagine that because we're constantly stuck. Like tonight, we're sitting on a live stream and we're talking about Super Tuesday. Like we don't know that Trump is already the Republican nominee. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have right now, that we're constantly letting Nikki Haley be the main talking point versus it being actually Trump versus Biden.
Absolutely. And that's really what when we look at tonight, it's kind of sad because from a commentary standpoint, we'd like to be able to like look at this and say, oh my gosh, like there's a swath of great candidates who's going to maybe be it. We know that Donald Trump, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. We know that Donald Trump's going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. But the sad thing that we look at is we have somebody who is wasting everybody's time, bashing our own party at a point where it's unnecessary, and we need to stop the infighting, get Republicans behind a single candidate, and be prepared come November. And right now, Joe Biden is able to sit and not take any questions, not do anything, play basement boy like he did last time. And Nikki Haley is doing all the work for him.
Exactly. Gentry, do you think we could get that second clip on, the one where it's MSNBC white rage? Because like this is what I mean. Like we'll watch this clip in a second. It's two guests on MSNBC. One is a political scientist. The other one is like a author or something like that. But they wrote a book, which I forgot, I think it's like White Rage or something like that.
Rural Rage.
White Rural Rage, exactly. And they just label all the different, sound bites that you can imagine. They call us like Republicans and whatnot, like white rural voters. And instead of countering those talking points, we're talking about Nikki Haley. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be fighting the narrative that the Democrats are trying to portray for this upcoming election. We have independents we have to win over in battleground states like Georgia, Pennsylvania. We'll actually see some of these battleground states today, how they're voting in their exit polls and whatnot. But yeah, it's important to fight these narratives that they're trying to illustrate us, because I mean, man, come November, it'll be a little too late if we're focused on the wrong things.
Yeah. Let's pull this up here real quick, because I saw this on the Charlie Kirk show originally, and I was freaking shocked.
Science at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Tom Schaller, and journalist and opinion writer Paul Waldman. Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the Threat to American Democracy. And Tom, we'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out a fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this. So we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalists and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of negative factors about this demographic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's absolutely absurd. And if maybe we can cue up that first clip. Look, I zoomed in, so now I'm like the same. I'm not too small to you guys. But if we cue up that very first video that we have ready, it's like the exit polls. If they're saying like all these people that deny the fact that, 2020 was the most fairest and freest election possible, then there are all these conspiracy theorists and whatnot. Look at these exit polls that we're going to show you guys. It's more than 50%, 60%, 70% in some cases. People are saying that it was not the fairest election. So they're saying all of these people are conspiracy theorists. They're grouping them into all of these crazy things. It's like, no, listen. There was a lot of irregularities in 2020. That does not make you a nutcase for saying that, just like it didn't make them like truly nutcases when they pointed out irregularities. So it's crazy that they have these two guys on MSNBC just spewing this rhetoric, this dangerous rhetoric, I would say, because it kind of is it's considered hateful speech in a sense. You're making it people target essentially like that. It's just absolutely absurd.
No, it absolutely is. And this is exactly what happened back in Iowa. I don't know if you remember the clip from Joy Reid, in which she talked about how it was all these white Christians in Iowa. And that's why Donald Trump was going to win Iowa, was because it was white Christians who, as she described, wanted some level of like a Christo-fascist state. And they believed that, according to her fantasy world that she lives in, she was like, all these Christian nationalists believe that they're entitled to the land of America, and people who look like me aren't. And not me, like Joy Reid, who we all know is
fantastic lady, great media personality,
exactly.
right?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. But so she gets up there, and that's the narrative that they're pushing right now, is that it's Christo-fascism, nationalism, and everything like that. And that's what gets Donald Trump elected. And it totally negates the entire idea that, hey, maybe he just speaks the way that people think. What basically people have been saying since 2016, the reason why people vote for Donald Trump is because, we do need to close our borders. Yes, our economy isn't working for everybody. It isn't working for the average person. And there are ways to solve that. And it's not by increasing taxes on everybody and increasing spending through government programs. And he speaks the way that people think. But to some of these liberals that are on TV that seem to think that they know everything and that they can play God, it's just all fascism. It's all fascism. It's all Christians' fault. It's all white people's fault. It's all racism's fault. It's all sexism, homophobia's fault. That's why Donald Trump gets elected. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the fact that maybe he has good policy.
Well, the other thing too is that their rhetoric, the line that they've been using is, vote for us because it's a vote for democracy, right? But what they really mean when you dig into what they're doing, they're trying to take Donald Trump off the ballot in whatever way they can. I mean, we even said earlier in the show that's probably why Nikki Haley is still running, because she thinks that potentially he could get taken out, right? He could get taken off the ballot, and then she could come in and win, or she could go to jail, and then she could come in and win. But they're trying to force their agenda. They're trying to force their candidate so bad, and they're going to shame everybody that doesn't think like them. And they're even going as far as saying white rural voters are a threat to democracy. And I think the jig is up, because what people are starting to understand that they're saying is that really what they want is like a pseudo monarchy, right? They want to be the ruling class, and anybody that doesn't have the same opinion that they do is now a threat to America. We don't live in a democracy, right? But let's just say we did, right? We live in a constitutional republic. Let's just say we did live in a democracy, and a majority of the people right now want Donald Trump to be president. Like, the media is then wrong. They're so wrong. They're not speaking for the people. They're preaching at the people right now. Oh, yeah. So I would just like to point that out, because I know it's been said multiple times in the last couple of weeks, but it needs to be said again. When they say democracy, that's not what they actually mean.
Yeah,
I'm gonna pull this clip up, by the way.
Perfect. And I was going to just quickly say, like, when they talk about a threat to democracy, I've learned that that's them actually saying a threat to Democrats. That's exactly what they mean. When they're talking about, nationalism is a threat to democracy, the fact that the Secretary of State in Colorado, who initiated this whole wave of trying to get Trump off the ballot, she literally came out and said today after the ruling, or yesterday after the ruling, she said that now it's up to the people to secure our democracy because Trump is a threat to our democracy. And it's like, no, listen, you're actually now playing by the rules, and we're going to let the constitutional republic process that we have work its ways. If they don't want Trump, then they will deny him. If they want him, they'll vote him. And you can't do anything about that.
No, you're absolutely right. And I know we're pulling up this clip here, but I do want to say real quick, because I just responded to a tweet about this yesterday. We have in the Illinois 11th district, we have a guy running for Congress. His name is Qasim Rashid. And he's like basically one of the most progressive leftist, I'd argue neo-Marxist candidates in the country right now, wants to be a squad member. And he argues in his tweet, he says, so it's states' rights when they're banning abortion, immigration, books, LGBTQ, and woke businesses, but it's not states' rights for proven gun safety laws and removing violent insurrectionists from the ballot. They're practically begging to destroy democracy. So in the same breath, he says that he wants to remove violent insurrectionists. Donald Trump is what he's really trying to refer to from the ballot. And then in the next sentence says they're trying to destroy democracy. Look, here's the thing is they gaslight these lefties, these progressives. They gaslight more than like the frat bro that's trying to get you to sleep with him while you're already like 3 beers deep. So like no more gaslighting from these Democrats, or there's no more gaslighting from anybody than these Democrats.
Well, I think that tees up this clip perfectly, because this is the exit polls, and it looks like people are having a question about whether Joe Biden legitimately won the 2020 election. By the way, if anybody is watching on Twitter, please retweet this so that we can get more people on this, because people really need to see this. All right, let's play this clip.
In the exit poll of Republican primary voters, did Joe Biden legitimately win the election in 2020? And again, you're seeing variance state to state right here. So let's start in Virginia on that question. And it's a split here. 45% saying yes, Joe Biden legitimately won in 2020. 46% in this first wave of our exit poll saying, no, Joe Biden didn't. Now, again, in the state that was best for Nikki Haley so far, and that is New Hampshire, 11-point loss, 43% of the vote. The number who said, the percent who said in New Hampshire that Biden legitimately won in 2020 was 46%. So basically, what happened in New Hampshire on this question right now, at least, is what we're seeing in Virginia. What about the other two states where we're conducting exit polls here? North Carolina. Here you see a different result. It's 34% yes, 60% no. And again, that puts North Carolina on this question basically in the same bucket as South Carolina. In South Carolina, it was 36% who said Biden had won legitimately. Here in this first wave, 34% in North Carolina. And then let's go to California. And again, it's a little counterintuitive because when you just think of California as a whole, you think of a big, giant blue state, a lot of moderate Republicans, this sort of thing. Well, again, closed primary here. So the number in California is just 33%. That's actually the smallest number right now of the three states that we're polling on this. The most
Holy moly.
Yeah. I mean, did you hear that? Like 33% of Californians, like Republican voters, believe that Joe Biden is the legitimate president. So that just shows you that everything that those two idiots, those two buffoons went on MSNBC and talked about white rural rage, they're all conspiracy theorists. You're talking about what we're talking about, 60 million people that they're saying that they're trying to group this into. And that's exactly what they're trying to do, is because when they say that they're a threat to democracy, they actually mean a threat to Democrats, because these people are not white Christian nationalists. We're talking about 60-70% of the Republican electorate has this, this idea, right? And look, it's not an idea; it's right. They believe in it. It's true. And they're not white. They're not Christian. They're not just white or Christian. It's all around everything. So it's crazy that they allow these people to come on MSNBC and do this. Actually, I believe it because it's MSNBC.
Well, David, I would like to point out too that this isn't all of California. It looks like it's just the California GOP primary, right?
Yeah.
So they're just polling GOP, but I bet you that this number you can extrapolate out throughout the whole state in Republican circles, especially conservative circles.
Yeah, they're definitely, like, I believe it's like easily 60% over like more than 60% of us Republican voters, like actually going to the polls, have the sentiment, believe in this stuff, right? So when they say that we're all nuts, essentially, right? They're grouping like easily 40 million of us into this. Is just absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what they consistently do. But this is what happened even back in 2016. Back in 2016, Hillary Clinton labeled every Trump supporter a deplorable. Look, at that time, many Trump supporters and Republicans just ran with it. And we still do. We're like, oh, we're proud deplorables. That's what we would say. Now they've gone so far, they've realized, man, we can't even like that. They'll take that word and make it their own. Like how when black people took back the N-word. No, now we're taking back deplorable.
Right.
We have that. But so because of that, now they're saying it's just racist white Christians, because now they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're an anti-Christian, anti-Christ movement. That's really what they are. And no, they're not necessarily coming out being pro-Satan, like where they're not saying we're Satan.
They're not saying that. And Hollywood.
That's what
I
what I was gonna say. Is they're not saying that, but they're also walking a very fine line. And many in politics is they preach this idea of a separation of church and state, something that's not found in the Constitution everywhere or anywhere, is derived from a misinterpretation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. And so when you have these people that are coming out and trying to be like, well, we need a separation, that is in a way doing the devil's bidding, because the devil doesn't need you to praise him. No, what the devil wants, what an antichrist would want, is just simply to be separated from God and to be separated from Christ as a savior. And so when you have them demonizing, pun intended, you for being a Christian, saying that you're a nationalist, a Christian, a fascist, that you're a racist because of in some way that having to do with your religion, they are doing the devil's bidding.
It's a great way to put it, honestly. We got 4 minutes before polls start to close, so we'll be definitely checking those out and seeing what's up with those. But yeah, no, it's crazy. And man, what they tried to make out of nationalism is just absolutely wild. There's really nothing wrong with nationalism, right? And they try to say, oh, it's just patriotism on steroids. No, it's literally nothing different than the fact that you love your country, you're patriotic about your country, and you believe in national sovereignty, you believe in borders. And that's the main thing that they're always trying to paint, right? Because if they can somehow in people's minds start to fabricate a new definition for nationalism, then they really achieve what they're trying to achieve here, which is, again, paint every individual that for some reason, or not for some reason, that loves their country, they try to paint them out to be their enemy. And that is just so crazy. Like they say, MAGA is your biggest enemy. MAGA are domestic terrorists. Let's break that apart. That's Make America Great Again. Our domestic terrorists, our enemies of state. That's just absolutely crazy. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor. We have a great sponsor, Freedom 2.0, right? Oh, we're all drinking our water bottles. This
Freedom 2.0.
Freedom 2.0. This is a great, great, great company. I actually love it because it comes with all these awesome slogans. Like mine says, "This water ain't woke." So great company.
You can't deprogram freedom.
Freedom.
Mine says, "This water hasn't been indicted yet, but I bet you if this water did get indicted, it'd be the #1 water in the world."
It's like the better version of like Snapple or like Dove chocolate. Like, you know how on those, like they get a little saying or something. These are more fun. I like these ones better.
Yeah. If water hasn't been indicted yet. This water doesn't have fluoride in it, so it won't make you go gay. This water won't turn the frogs gay.
That's funny.
I know we've been saying that. Does it actually say somewhere on here that it doesn't have fluoride? Do we actually know that? We've been saying that a lot. Like we gotta know what we're saying. What I will.
Cap is small and poses a choking hazard, particularly for small children and liberals. I'm kidding. It doesn't say that, but that'd be funny if it did.
You can go and I was going to quickly say Breakway for 15% off as well. So make sure you type that in at checkout. Get a nice little 15% off and drink free water.
And it's made in the USA. Do you want to support an American company? Support Freedom 2.0. It's American.
Made in the USA. So here it is. It's purified water through a rigorous multi-step purification, microfiltration, UV, and ozone treatment. So pretty good water.
Absolutely.
Pretty decent good water. And it's got all these funny sayings on it that your liberal uncle will love, by the way.
Yeah, like
you should dedicate to your liberal uncle for his birthday.
My favorite thing, it's Cap is a small part, poses a choking hazard. That one's the funniest thing. No, I'm just kidding. But no, you got even like a little QR code. Anybody, you could, I don't know if you'll be able to get enough resolution on here, but go check them out. I mean, you could look at any of our Instagrams. You could check out Breakaway_USA. Check out Freedom Water today.
Easy.
Greatest water you'll ever drink. A shower in it. A shower in freedom.
All right, I got the first poll to report. So already at 2% reporting, North Carolina, 70% is off to Trump. 26.3 is hanging for Nikki Haley. It's about a 10,000 vote difference right now. So it's 15,000 for Trump, 5,000 for Nikki Haley. And I just want to say North Carolina is one of those states that I'm watching, and I'm really happy to see already what I'm seeing there, because it's one of those weird states where you got Republican senators, I'm pretty sure a blue Democrat, right? Like a Democrat governor, or it might be flipped a little bit, but something like that's like what they consider a purple state. And in under Obama, it went to Obama. Trump took it back in 2016. He held it in 2020, and he held it with about a 75,000 vote margin as well. So North Carolina could be a great indicator for 2024 in general, like the general election, because of this mixed hybrid demographic that they have there. So to see that already, that means that moderates are going to be breaking over to Trump, at least from what we're already seeing in North Carolina. So that's always good to see.
Well, I would also like to point out, too, that there's been a ton of speculation that Nikki Haley is encouraging Democrats to vote in the Republican primaries and the caucuses. And in some cases, you're allowed to. And we think that, especially in New Hampshire, a lot of those people were actually Democrats, too. So I don't think Nikki Haley has as much support as we think that she does based on the polls. I've really only ever met 2 Nikki Haley supporters in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but
No, I've met Nikki Haley supporters, but I can tell you, none of the Nikki Haley supporters that I've ever met were Nikki Haley supporters from the beginning. Many of them moved through different candidates because they're really just not Trump supporters.
never Trumpers.
Yeah, more so never Trumpers. They're people that they're looking to Haley now as a potential, but are just kind of like, they don't feel motivated by either of the candidates, which here's the thing that I see about that is I can totally understand somebody who's not motivated to vote for Trump or motivated to vote for Biden. I can understand that. What I can't understand is somebody who claims to be in some way a Republican or a conservative and supporting Nikki Haley, even if it's an anti-Trump vote, because if you claim to be a conservative or Republican, and then you're not pro Nikki Haley. I mean, unless you come out and you're also like, hey, I love the establishment. I love being oppressed by the people that claim to be representing me, but in reality just are representing themselves and filling their own pockets. Like, unless you love that, unless you just love and you're almost a masochist for the elite and the swamp, then there's no reason you should be supporting Nikki Haley.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of them, though. You know, not a lot, but there's definitely a group, like a section of Republicans that feel disenfranchised by Trump or Trump's rhetoric, and it's really odd to see them like I understand why to support Nikki Haley if you're disenfranchised by Trump, because the other alternative would be, I guess, the person that you're disenfranchised with. But now that it's obviously clear what you have Trump is going to be your Republican nominee. What I don't understand is if you're going to do literally a protest vote, essentially, not vote for Trump and vote for Joe Biden either again or for the first time. You already have 4 years of Trump and 4 years of Joe Biden. And there's a clear difference for it when it comes down to the economy, domestic issues, foreign issues that we have, right? It's very clear. So I just don't understand what goes on in those people's heads. Like, okay, don't vote for his character. Don't vote for his rhetoric. Vote for his policy. Put all of your ego aside. And if you're a true conservative, then vote for conservative policies. And America First policies are some of the greatest conservative policies, in my opinion. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So I can actually see the logic in people wanting to support Nikki Haley because in my mind, what they really want is a unified country, right? They're trying to get people from the right and from the left. That's why Nikki Haley is like a lot more in the center, right? She's more of a neocon, which arguably is in the center. I think it's really misguided, though, to try to unify in the center because of how far the left has gone. The left right now is absolutely nuts. They want to cut kids' dicks off. They want to like import illegal immigrants that potentially could, attack us. And they want the great replacement theory. They want to force and compel people to take vaccines and to take medication. They're calling us racist. They're calling us bigots. They're calling us all the names in the book. And so the fact that she's trying to unify the country, so to speak, in the center, I don't think that's the right way to go. The pendulum has swung so far to the left, and people are starting to see the idiocy. I think now it's time to unify the country on the right.
Yeah, no,
now, that might be a crazy thing to say, right? Like I'm in Seattle, right? If I said that on the streets of Seattle, like one of two things is going to happen, and the end result of both of those is I'm going to be incapacitated. Right?
Yeah. No,
but I think we need to have the pendulum swing much farther to the right, and then unify around that. Like we got to stop with all this crazy idiocy. We got to stop making social issues political issues.
Oh, good luck with that, honestly, though,
What
because
do you
the
mean by that?
I know,
What do you
I
mean
know.
by
It's a utopia that
Well-
we had 20 years ago that we can never have again.
no,
Explain
no,
that to me. No, what do you mean by don't make social issues political issues?
Social issues, political issues. So like um the whole trans thing, like the states should not like come in and say, hey, like we're gonna kidnap your kids if you don't affirm them, right? And so
the problem, I have to push back on that real quickly,
Yeah.
Gentry. The problem with social issues is that the underlying reason that it's an issue is because there's an issue in policy. It either doesn't address the issue or the
no, 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 no,
policy
no,
is
no,
being
no,
overridden.
no. You're not understanding what I'm saying, because in Washington State, right? Actually, up until a couple of days ago, because they just passed the Parents' Bill of Rights, which is going to go effective in 90 days, and they actually don't need the governor's signature on it. But what the state did is, because it went so far left, they said, hey, we actually control your kids. You don't have any parental rights anymore. We do. Right. And so the government is getting into the social fabric of the family. That's what I mean.
Well, and that's why I think that it should be actually a political thing, because the only way to combat this cultural issue that is happening, it's a cultural phenomenon, right? It's only happening, first of all, in our Western democracies, because we only have time to deal with this stuff. But the only way to counter that is with making it a political issue, because if they want to allow biological men to go into women's bathrooms in North Carolina in high school, or in Virginia, for example, in middle school, then the only way to combat that is by making some sort of policy, making it political, essentially, to combat it. So I almost feel like there's no way to let go of social issues and not have them related to political
Well, and
stuff.
that's exactly why I asked the question, what do you mean by separating social? Because the only way that I could see that working is by taking an incredibly libertarian stance and basically saying, do whatever you want. But it kind of comes down to the philosophical question as to at what point do we no longer legislate morality? Because like we legislate morality in the fact that we say you can't kill somebody. We legislate morality by saying that you have to be of a certain age to have consensual sex. We don't necessarily legislate. I mean, it depends on where you are, but for a while we were not legislating morality in terms of abortion. And nowadays we don't legislate morality in terms of homosexual relations. At what point do we no longer, that would be how you separate a social issue from politics, is questioning, because there are social issues that will always be political. I mean, what about hospital assisted suicide, doctor assisted suicide? That's one that I know Canada's been dealing with a lot recently. That's a moral quandary that you question as to whether or not how much you legislate it. And so that's kind of, to entirely separate social issues from politics is kind of, like you said, in a way a utopia, but it would only be a utopia if we had everybody on the same side of here's what is the morally correct decision. Because in my view, morals are objective. You either have them or you don't, and they're based in scripture. However, we live in a society that doesn't view it that way, and we have many that believe like baby murder is perfectly fine. So
yeah.
Well,
Quick little just breaking news again. Trump takes Tennessee. He takes Virginia, overwhelmingly 66.2%, gaining 15 delegates over there. If anybody's curious, Nikki got 31% in Virginia. Trump got 66%, which is incredible. It's again above that 60% mark to see in Virginia. Awesome. This is hilarious right now. They have I don't know what it is, but they're showing that Chris Christie is in the lead right now in Oklahoma. I don't know how, but whatever.
That is a rebellious vote, and I actually love him for that.
I love it. Right. And so it's going really well so far for Trump. And just a quick update on the Democrat side of things. So Virginia, 87% for Joe Biden. 90% Iowa for Joe Biden. The reason why I wanted to just quickly talk about Joe Biden is because they actually have uncommitted option on the ballot, and there's a huge protest against Joe Biden relatable to his age. He's actually getting huge backlash for supporting Israel, which is just hilarious, especially up in the northern states. Like Michigan was a big problem with over 100,000 people voting uncommitted for Joe Biden, which is just insane, right? And you have to remember, that's a lot. That's the incumbent president taking about a 20% loss in a primary in Michigan. Just for a point of reference, I mean, incumbent presidents usually have a 98, 97, 96, 99% in some cases win rate during their primaries in the incumbent term or whatever, right? But yeah, the one to watch tonight for Minnesota for Joe Biden is Minnesota because of their huge Muslim population. So it's gonna be really interesting. And if you think about it, if they're gonna protest Joe Biden, which I'm all for, please do, that means that they're electing President Trump, which is just so much more hardcore on the Muslim community, which is, I mean, whatever, right? That's my subjective opinion, but the Muslim ban, right? Which what they termed it, but it's just essentially a ban on travel from predominantly Muslim countries, right? Trump is very pro-Israel. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, right? So their protest vote is actually going to most likely help President Trump be reelected in the blue states, in the blue wall.
I mean, it might actually be really, really good for Muslims to vote for Trump because of how hard he's been on every other country in the world. And that's resulted in peace, by the way.
Exactly.
And so, like, a Trump presidency is going to see, I think, a very peaceful world, or a large move in that direction, right?
Absolutely.
Because he's going to try to get peace in the Middle East as soon as possible.
Well, he had it. Like, that's the thing.
He did have it. He did have it.
It's like you have two people. I mean, like, in terms of that issue, it might be one of the only ones that Joe Biden and Donald Trump actually get along on pretty well. That just like is more in the nitty gritty of like, how much should you be providing for Israel? Questions like that. But they both unequivocally support Israel and denounce Hamas and denounce Palestine. But under Donald Trump, there was no October 7th attack or an equivalent. There, in fact, was the Abraham Accords. So, I mean, if you're going to the individuals, the Muslims, like, yeah, I'd rather go with the guy that doesn't support me, but at least supports a peace agreement than. And that's the way I'd look at it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a Muslim out there that could come. I have a lot of questions for him. I got to be honest, when it comes to the Muslim faith, I'm heavily critical. So I got a lot of questions, but
I think you're on point.
By the way, we do have a very special guest joining us, the one and the only.
Oh yeah,
Fabian in the house.
Fabian Lux on Instagram. Go follow him. By the way, if you're just tuning in on Twitter, please give us a retweet. Share this with your friends. Welcome, Fabian, to the show.
Sorry I couldn't make it earlier, guys. I misread the time. I was at the gym, but I am back. I've been listening to you guys. Tons of viewers on all platforms. You guys are absolutely killing it. Kevin's eating his dinner. Thank God. We need him to get
I just got home from work right before we started. I got home from work.
David, if everyone can salute David for his brand new camera that he got in the mail. He looks like a stud.
Mine's coming.
Gentry's is coming. Guys, we're going to look like CNN times 12, but actually with good information pretty soon. So you get ready. Make sure you subscribe and make sure that you get yourself some Freedom Water, because think free, speak free, live free.
Look at that banner.
Shout out to our sponsors water when we did the plug. Look at you, Fabian. Keeping us all connected.
If you guys can catch me up on what's been happening, where are we at? I'm honestly very excited. I live in Hollywood, for anyone out there listening, and I went to go vote today, and I'm very interested in seeing what passes here in California. We have some very interesting measures. We have a very, very, very bad George Soros appointed DA named George Gascon, who is partly the reason for the detriment of Los Angeles. We have a lot of people who are running against him. The guy I voted for, Nathan Hochman, is a Republican who's a classic district attorney who actually prosecutes crimes and not says because of their skin color they have to be back on the street, because if not, we get the pow from the ACLU. So I'm very curious to see what happens with that. But yeah, glad to be here, boys. Let's get into it.
By the way,
roll.
if you are in
Came in
California
hot.
and you haven't voted yet, go vote Pete Hernandez up in the San Francisco area. Vote Pete Hernandez.
Vote Pete Hernandez. California doesn't close for another 2 hours, so you got time, ladies and gentlemen, to go vote.
Go
All
spread
right,
the word. Text 20 of your best friends. Text your liberal uncle. Just do it all.
Quick little update. So we have Vermont 51.8% going for Trump so far. Texas 74.2% going for former President Trump. Oklahoma, Chris Christie, I'm sorry you took the back seat. It's now going for President Trump. I mean, guys, it's just a landslide again. I mean, the main one we were looking at is North Carolina. It'll be interesting to see California. I'm really curious about California and Minnesota as well. But those don't close Minnesota won't close for another 45 minutes or so. But yeah, North Carolina, exciting stuff there.
Wow.
We were talking about Muslims, which I was just going to point out. I think so. Kevin,
what a transition!
What a segue!
Right? I mean, it's kind of right because Michigan, Minnesota, again, the largest population in the United States for Muslims in terms of like per square mile or whatever, right? But yeah, you're right. I mean, look, if you're in a not an extreme Muslim, what I'll call is fundamentalist, Islamist fundamentalist, then you should be very pro-Trump in terms of the fact that he was able to band together Muslim countries, predominantly Muslim countries, with Western alliance countries and people who are like, oh, well, I'm anti-globalist and stuff like that. This is the only time that you won partnerships with other countries like that, because you can achieve peace through trading. Look at President Trump again, what he achieved in those 4 years. The Abraham Accords is a perfect representation for that. And before October 7th, little people know about this, but Israel was getting ready to sign with Saudi Arabia what they termed as the Abraham Accords 2.0, which would have achieved so much more. If you thought already 6-7 countries signing peace deals with Israel was big, Saudi Arabia signing that peace deal would have been extremely amazing in terms of peace in the Middle East, actual peace, and then also economic trade, because nothing like having peace when both sides are benefiting economically, they're prospering each other and whatnot. And honestly, let's be honest, that's what Gaza could have been. In 2005, when Israel fully deoccupied Gaza, they literally pushed out around 5,000 Israelis from living in Gaza and said, you're out, this is their territory now. They got so much money that they could have been the Singapore of the Middle East. But what did they do? They built tunnels. They used water pipes to create missiles, right? They steal all the aid and everything like that. That's the reality of Gaza. So you cannot achieve peace with them because they're not ready for trade. It's that simple. It's really that simple.
You know, the sad thing is the world was getting so peaceful for so long, right? That does not behoove the people who want to divide us. I heard you guys talking earlier about a few things, and I was reminded of the age-old statement, divide and conquer. That is all they were trying to do. We were way too peaceful. They were starting to lose control. They activated the new Red Guard 2.0 when these leftists, libtards, whatever you want to call them. Oh, sorry, I don't call them liberals because they're not liberals. They don't believe in democracy. So they are not a typical liberal. They are leftists. But they reactivated that. Then they made everything about race, the opposite of what Martin Luther King wanted. They instituted critical race theory that says that all the society is made for white people by white people. So if you're anything but white, you have to hate white people. It's more division. And look, for a subsection of the population, it's worked. There are many people who are just pissed and they don't even understand why. They're eating bad food. The weather's being modified. They're inhaling aluminum iodide in their lungs. Social media has wrecked their attention span. Marriage rates, divorce rates are through the roof. Abortion rates are through the roof. Like everything is going wrong, and it's all meant to divide us. And here's the last thing I'll say about this: is people are saying, "Screw Harvard. Harvard's a piece of crap. Claudine Gay, all this stuff. She plagiarized everything." Okay, now everyone hates Harvard. Now everyone hates Bud Light. Now everyone's starting to hate. We're going to hate Doritos, but then they fired the person. The leftists want to infiltrate and destroy from the inside. That is their ball game. They don't care that you hate Harvard now, because what that was is that was this mountain on top of the American just way of life. Harvard was a thing. Now they've broken it down. Bud Light was the most American beer. and now they've broken it
Mhm.
down. So they infiltrate, they ruin, and they abandon the ruins onto the next thing. So that's a dilemma that Americans are going to have to deal with, is after all these people are defeated, after they breathe themselves out of existence, how do we rebuild the right way again? And I think the Paraline economy and companies like Freedom Water and the Wellness Company, our other sponsors, are people who are trying to achieve that goal.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like they're just trying to make it. If they just make it all gay, then nobody they don't want to do it. I mean, that was the thing about Bud Light, is that's how they ruined it. Is like it just became a general joke, like if you drank Bud Light, you were going to turn gay. And so if you drink, that's what they do. If they're going to make everything gay.
I wonder what Pride Month is going to be like this year, because there's been so much pushback. I mean,
It's going to be
Bud
my
Light,
Vietnam.
well, no. So Bud Light got Bud Lighted like during Pride Month, right?
Yeah, it's
Because
almost
of the
been a year now.
whole thing. Starbucks stopped Pride Month halfway through. I don't know if you guys saw that. So I bet you Pride Month isn't going to be as big from the corporate level.
All right,
this
a little
year.
controversial here, but there are like gay Republicans, lesbian Republicans. I'll even go as far as saying like trans Republicans, right? So are we going too far here, or is this
No.
the right thing? All right.
No. So we've even had some of them on our show, and David, actually have two friends named David, and they're both gay and they're both Republican, and they do.
Not me.
They do.
Not
No,
that-
not
not
you.
this day.
Not
Not
you.
that there's anything wrong with that. Not that
Nothing wrong
You
with
say
it.
that for the ladies. that
Nothing
are watching
wrong. Nothing wrong. No. So, but they're not militant about it. They're not trying to convert people to be gay, right? One of our friends, American David, on Instagram, go follow him because he puts out some fantastic content. He's partners with Gays Against Groomers, which I think is a much needed organization in this fight for freedom, because what they're doing, I mean, the groomers are taking away freedom from the kids, right? Trump actually just had a gay wedding at Mar-a-Lago. But what we're talking about is the militant gays that want to rub it in your face all day long. They want to convert your kids. They want to just have sex with everyone, it seems like. So that's what we're talking about. The gays on the Republican side, I'm friends with some of them. They're fantastic people.
Well, exactly. And like it's the people that make it their entire personality that are kind of the issue. I mean, that's a good way to gauge it. Like if you look at if you look at like Dave Rubin, I didn't know. I'd been listening to the Rubin Report for like 3 years before I found out
now
that
it all
Dave
makes
Rubin was
sense.
gay.
It makes sense that you've been listening to the Rubin Report for so long. Is that what?
No,
Hey,
I
no shame, Kev. I listened to it too.
No, I think Dave Rubin's an interesting guy. I mean, I've read like Don't Burn This Book, and I think that he has a lot of interesting takes. I had no idea he was gay for quite a while. Like,
Yeah.
I had no idea about it. I think there had been a few times where I was like, did he just say like partner?
Mhm.
Did I catch that right? And then like and then I started getting down the rabbit hole, and that's how I found out.
Well, he was a liberal up until 2020.
Well,
It
there
was
you go.
before 2020.
Yeah,
but-
it was. I think it was like 2016, so
Yeah.
17, 18, something like that. But that's my exact point right now. Is that I mean, and you were talking about this, Gentry, a little bit ago. Is that like they've swung so far to the left, like that they want to shove this, like they want to indoctrinate you and everything like that. That regular people who just so happen to be gay or lesbian in the middle just found themselves like, I can't get down with this Democrat Party. So I feel like it's our job to, I know you hate this, but like to welcome into our Republican Party, because the more we have like people like that in the middle, that we don't let them influence our policy, but we accept them into the Republican Party by making them vote for Republican candidates, then I feel like it's going to be really hard for it. You know, I feel like a Reagan-like Republican wave can definitely happen with how far left they've swung, that we can just capture even people center left, even, you know, not just even in the middle, because of this crazy stuff. Like how many normal people just center left just probably swung over and voted in Republican in many situations after they realized how much indoctrination is happening in the schools and how much they're trying to shove this agenda into just kids. I mean, I think I read like 77% of Democrats agree that all of this stupid stuff that they're trying to shove down in kids' throats in schools should not be taught or should be part of an agenda and stuff like that.
Oh,
I think you're right,
100%,
David.
100%. Sorry. What I would say is I would love that. I would love if like the blue-haired, tattooed, he, she, it, they people like that I get my coffee from every day because liberals up until this point, but like prove me wrong. If there's a better Republican coffee company out there, prove me wrong. But they make the
Black
best.
Rifle.
But I don't know, man. I've tried their coffee.
I've actually never had their hot coffee. I've only had their cold one.
It's good, but the coffee I get in Seattle, it's bar none, just so good. We are the coffee capital of the world. Anyway, I would love it if those like he, she, it, whatever, pansexual, blah blah blah. I would love it if they voted for Trump. I would be like, welcome to the party. Do you want to get a haircut? That's what I would say.
Free haircut.
Oh,
Free
yeah.
haircut. Like
That's how you entice them. Actually, vote Trump, get a free haircut.
Well, you know what they say.
It worked with the vaccine, right? It's like, hey,
Free fries.
Free fries,
free
exactly.
fries.
free fries and a donut. So
Yeah. So you know what they say, if you're young and conservative, you have no heart. And if you're old and liberal, you have no brain. I think we're going to see something like this play out very, very specifically with this generation, with Gen Z, especially, that they're going to look back the way you look back when on your high school pictures and you're like, what in the hell was I wearing? What did I do to myself? What was the stupidity? And I think because it's anytime something is fresh, whether you're in marketing and business, right? You have a product, your product has no negative reviews yet. It's fresh. Once you start getting those negative reviews, and once you have other competitors, and once capitalism hits you in the face, then it's not so fresh anymore. And I think that's already starting to happen. We're already seeing detransitioners. We're already seeing horror stories, which are bad reviews. So no longer can they mask this facade with unicorns and candy canes, because there is literally a massive Reddit called Detrans where people post about their bottom surgery and all these surgeries that they're having, and they're miserable. And other people thinking about doing it are going to Reddit. Reddit is a very leftist social site. So you're already starting to see people maybe have second thoughts. You're already starting to see detransitioners. You're starting to see states that are banning this stuff, this idiocy. But the other thing, to your point, Gentry, was that actually, and David's point, who started this initial topic, is we're going to see people that are left. I say left from the left because they're going to be left out from the left, because the left will always keep moving to the left faster and faster, because you can never be left enough, because you're trying to fulfill some kind of like godlike mountain, and you'll never get there. I mean, we just saw AOC happen. That just happened to her today.
Well, and that's the thing, is because so there's a few things with that. First off, with your first point of like, yeah, we're starting to get the bad reviews, and there's all that stuff about the detrans, and like, sure, that might be hopeful. But it's really sad to me. People said this about like the 2008 market crash, is that like you have all these people who are in debt, all these people that lost their jobs, some people lost their lives, and no one went to jail for offering the subprime loans that pretty much through our banking crisis. In fact, most of them got bailed out. Like, and no one went to jail. Now I look, and that was bad, but I have the same comment when it comes to all of this detrans stuff. Is we had pharmaceutical companies, politicians, doctors, all working in tandem to push this transgender ideology, to push people, children, to chop off body parts and take life-altering hormone pills, into which they are reducing their life expectancy, making it so that they can no longer have children, drastically changing their bodies, their makeups, and basically killing themselves. And not a single one of these people will go to jail. And so, yes, maybe we're a little hopeful. Maybe the bad reviews are coming in, but it's so sad as to what it took to get there. That's the first thing. The second point that you were making, when it comes to, man, I had it and then I lost it.
You're going too
The
hard.
train
there.
of thought has left the station.
I know it happens.
The
I was
gravy
like
train.
I was trying to stall for what did you end off on, Fabian?
Oh, how the left will continue to move to the left.
Yes,
faster and
exactly.
faster.
That's why we need to make sure, because like, yes, we can use the left, but a synonymous term for that would also be progressive. These people claim themselves to be progressives. Well, what are they trying to progress towards? If you were to ask them that, they don't really have an answer. If you were to ask us what people are often like, well, you're a conservative. What are you trying to conserve? The founding principles of America, what you find in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It's a clear layout of what we're trying to preserve. What are they trying to progress towards? They don't have an end goal.
Kevin,
So they're just going to keep going and going and going and going.
yeah,
Absolutely. And so where that came from was Hegel and with the dialectic. So dialectic says that you take what is and what is not, and you create a hybrid. It's called a synthetic reality. So you can't have gay unless you have heterosexual, right? It's opposite and what is normal, and they destroy each other, and it takes you to a higher level. So to them, they will eventually be gods where nothing is nothing and everything is nothing. So like a point of singularity where then there will be no history, no world, no humanity. It will just all be, it's like this hocus pocus hippie stuff. So that's why they're always saying, this is the reality. Let's do the opposite of that. And then let's come to terms to whatever reality, synthetic reality is going to come out of that. And then at that point, let's make another reality. This is why they keep eating their own. This is why AOC is not left enough. Today, they have those two people that would not leave her alone saying, you didn't call Palestine a genocide or, whatever. And she was getting pissed and screaming at them. They are going to eat their own because you can never be happy. Traditionalism, conservatism, you know what you stand for. It's always basically the same. The leftism, it changes so quickly because you want to have that status in your cult that it's never gonna move slow enough for you to catch up to the train. The train's always gonna leave you.
It's a dick measuring contest as to who has the smallest dick.
Yeah.
Or who cut theirs off faster. Like
I think that it's part of it, actually deeper, more complex. It actually deserves its own like hour or two conversation about like the true issue behind it. But if you think about it, it's the fact that society hit its peak. And once all societies hit their peak, what ends up happening? We have these, what we call them social justice warriors trying to do more and more, but there's nothing to fix more. Like you said, Kevin, what is more progressive than what we already have in today's society? At some point, like in the 1920s, progressive as a movement, that made sense. But today, 1990s America, 2000s, so that was the peak of America, the one that we say we want to go back to that America. And that is the real problem here, is that these progressives, they're so sick. They got this virus in their head. They're stuck believing that we need to do something. We need to prove something. We need to be part of something bigger. And that's when society starts to eat itself. Like you said with AOC, her own people are eating her up. Why? Because that's the natural phenomenon of what's happening right now, is that too much, this ultraism, right? It's just too much of it. They believe that they're right, so they continue in the name of whatever philosophy, in the name of whatever social justice they can imagine, to continue to progress things. And in reality, they're just destroying society. They're just destroying what it means to be a woman, for example, destroying what a nuclear family is all about, right? Just eroding everything that made society fantastic. It's, like I said, it deserves its own hour, 2-hour conversation or something like that to talk about how the West is destroying itself from within itself, honestly.
And not to get too preachy on this either, but so the Pope actually just talked about this. He's been talking about the destruction of gender. I'm a Catholic, so like I follow it pretty closely. But the Pope just was talking about the destruction of gender and how the destruction of gender ultimately is leading towards like the destruction of humanity. And if you really think about it, we've been on this train. Where, and I just talked about this on my show on Sunday, is you start off you kind of can go back to the point of which we started destroying the sanctity of sex and marriage. And that was through the proliferation of the gay marriage movement, the Supreme Court deciding Obergefell, all that kind of stuff. And then we moved from that to where now sex is just public. In fact, we live in a world where it is harder to avoid pornography than it is to obtain it. Think about back in like the 70s, 80s, 60s, you'd have to like seek out to try to find a Playboy, or maybe if you turn the dial just right and move everything, then you'd be able to see a nipple on HBO or something, even though you didn't subscribe to it, anything like that. But now pornography is harder to avoid. It's on Twitter, it's on Reddit, it's literally everywhere. It's on TikTok pretty much. Like sex is basically destroyed. There's no sanctity to it. Now we're trying to destroy gender, which in Genesis, God made man, God made woman. He made Adam first and then took the rib from Adam, made Eve. He made man and woman individually. He didn't make them interchangeable. He didn't make a non-binary. He didn't that wasn't a thing. They're consistently what the left has done with sex and gender, and then they also do it with race too. Think about it. They try to make it so they'll divide us on race, but they will destroy the sense of individuality within it. You can't, you can be black and you can be white. It's clear based on the melanin in your skin. However, if you are of a certain color, you have to subscribe to that set of beliefs, to that lifestyle. There is no such thing as individualism. You are not made in an image of God. You are made to be some faceless, nameless number in their system, to where God is entirely removed, to where there is no sense of individuality. And if you don't have any of that, if you don't have an individuality, if you're not man or woman, if you're nothing, then you really don't have a soul. And if you don't have a soul, you're no longer God's child. They're trying to. This is all about separating us from God. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's all it is.
I really believe.
I love that you're preaching to us in an FJB shirt. That's like,
I know,
that's
right?
maybe the greatest thing of all time. That's like
quick little update from Massachusetts. So Joe Biden is now down to 73% with 20% no preference. Again, this is just the effect of age, terrible policy.
For Harry Truman.
Let's see this.
Yeah, I do think it'll be an important part of this campaign, because you can establish a clear contrast. You have a do-nothing Republican Congress that has delivered meaningful progress for the American people. Instead, it's been chaos and dysfunction and extremism. And that compares to the track record of accomplishment under the leadership of President Biden, a historic Congress in the previous 2 years prior to this Congress starting, where we got things done like clean water in every community, bringing domestic manufacturing jobs back home to the United States of America, lowering the
nobody can afford your water,
drugs, including taking the price of insulin to $35 a month for millions of Americans. It's an extraordinary track record of accomplishment. Now, we can contrast that with the do-nothing Republican Congress.
Well, I guess we can come back to them.
Yeah, we'll check in on the most objective news in the world.
Yep.
By the way,
MSNBC, where people go to die.
I just put a tweet of mine that's going semi-viral in the chat. If we could pull it up, I wanted to show you guys what we're dealing with in Washington State, because it is kind of crazy.
I can't wait to
see
this.
I've realized now, talking to you and talking to Jason and his wife from We the People Utah, that some of you states up there, I thought you guys had it all figured out and you're all very relaxed. You're some of the craziest states, and I'm saying that from California. Like what? You guys need more sunlight up there, maybe. I don't know.
100%. So yeah, pull it up here, because I wanna show what this is.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah.
So it's my ballot. I took a picture of it, and this is the return label, and you're supposed to mark Democrat or Republican on the outside of the return label. And so anyone who's handling the mail can see it. And so like a ton of people are on my side, and they've commented and saying this is ridiculous. Like they're setting it up for election fraud. They're going to throw away your ballot, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. But then I'm getting people that are saying, oh, like this is just a normal way that people do things. And this is just a primary. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to mark if you're a Republican or Democrat. And someone even tried to like community note me and cited the Washington State like laws, like election laws. And I said, yeah, but why is it on the outside? Why is it on the outside of the ballot? And it's actually really interesting if you think about it, because a lot of people think about Washington like a deep blue state, but stuff like this makes me think it's a little bit different, because if everyone was liberal in Washington, why would they need to do this and set up election fraud like this? Why would they need to remove Trump from the ballot? Why would they need, like, maybe the internal polling, maybe all of the FBI like going through our messages and DMs and all this kind of stuff, maybe it's showing different data. I know that's kind of a conspiracy theory a little bit, but we've kind of been batting 1,000 on those. So Colorado, it's deep blue. They try to take Trump off the ballot. Like, why would they do that? Do they think that Colorado would potentially go red?
It could go back to their favorite new term. They say that he's a threat to democracy. But again, do they actually mean by that? He's a threat to Democrats.
It's a threat to the Democratic Party.
Exactly, because I haven't seen numbers like this go for Trump or for a Republican. The black vote, the Hispanic vote, the women vote. I don't know if you guys saw this. Trump has never polled this high with women ever before. He's +1 on Joe Biden with women now. I mean, yes.
Across the board?
We pull that up, because I almost don't believe you.
Yes. All right. Let's find it, because they were absolutely going bonkers today about this stuff. Because listen, guys, I mean, it's simple. People got Jack Posobiec. I asked him this at CPAC. I said, how do we win independence over? And he said that actually is one of the simplest things you can do, because the easiest question they have to ask themselves is, I have 4 years of Trump. Now I had 4 years of Joe Biden. What is better for me? And if your answer somehow is Joe Biden, with all the wars, with the inflation, with this and that, it's crazy.
Wow. Yeah. Business
New
Insider.
poll shows Biden losing some of his 2020 voters to Trump and lagging in support among women.
Mm-hmm.
This is New York Times. Trump leading Biden 48-44. I'm looking for the women.
That's a New York Times poll.
Wow.
That's skewed about 2.4, I believe it was, % to the left. So that's actually about 50-42.
Whoa. In the Times poll, Trump led Biden among women by a 47-46% margin among likely voters. Meanwhile, men backed Trump over Biden 49-42.
Who would have thought that New York Times would vindicate my claim?
What a world we are living in.
And this is ranked. This because I read this through the Daily Wire actually just a few days ago for my show. And this is actually ranked as like one of, I think this is on 538, which conglomerates all the polls. Mm-hmm. This is ranked as number 1, I believe, in reliability.
Yep.
Wow.
So.
And they still skew 2.4% or so to the left, which is absolutely, it shows you how crazy these polls are. I'll never forget that Wisconsin poll. I don't know if you guys remember it, but 18% Joe Biden in 2020. Mm-hmm. It's just, what? Like crazy stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, it just shows you guys. I mean, again, they say threat to democracy. Scratch out the democracy part. They actually mean threat to Democrats. They're pretty illiterate and dumb. So they think they're like Democrats, democracy, same thing, right? But yeah, we know what they actually mean.
This is pretty interesting. So in 2020, Biden beat Trump with people in the 18 to 29 year age range by 60 to 36% in 2020. It is currently 54-41. So that is much different.
Wow.
And it's still early in the year. He's only at a 13-point lead with voters. This is the left's main age group right here. This is who they're preying on.
I know how Trump can win over women. I know it. What he needs to do is he needs to pull a Dave Portnoy and Miss Peaches. That's what he needs to do. Have you guys seen this? Okay, Dave Portnoy went in. He adopted a dog. Okay, he didn't get like a brand new designer dog. He went to the shelter and got this like kind of ugly pit bull, and he's calling it Miss Peaches. If you guys have a second, go on TikTok and look up Miss Peaches. It is the most ridiculous thing. He's like, oh, Miss Peaches, oh, you chewed up my hat, oh, you did this, oh, you made a mess here, oh, like, and he's treating this dog like royalty, and he's winning over women. And here's what's really interesting. Dave Portnoy in a lot of ways is a Donald Trump. The same like character, the same caricature, kind of like in your face, says it how it is. They're both from New York. And so that's how Trump is going to win women over if he adopts a dog, like a mangy, like ugly, cute dog. I guarantee you he will win the election.
That's a fair bet, honestly.
I think it's also okay. It's interesting that you make the Trump Portnoy comparison too, because if you think about it, so Portnoy built up like this major business. So Trump gets elected to president. He has it, and then Portnoy sold it off. Portnoy sold off Barstool briefly for a brief period of time, and when he did, it went into the gutter. It got worse. People didn't like it as much. So then he comes back, and he makes it better than ever. What's going on with Trump right now? Trump leaves the office. The country gets a little bit worse. I mean, a lot of bit worse, but in comparison, it could be a lot worse. Now he's running. He's going to take it back and bring it better than it's ever been. Hey, it could be. You honestly, Portnoy could be a prophecy for Trump and America.
Or Trump can just go on Martha Stewart, or she doesn't have a show, but go and do something with her like Snoop Dogg did. I mean, Snoop Dogg is now uber famous with Martha Stewart's demographic, and it was just because they have a weed company together. He went on and he showed, hey, I'm not this gangster guy. I'm just Martha Stewart's friend, and buy stuff from me. And now he's doing it. So now a Trump Martha Stewart collab.
Work. The craziest collabs.
Well, but that's what Trump. But if you think about it, that's kind of what Trump has been doing. I mean, why is it that all these famous rappers and hip hop artists are endorsing Trump over Biden? Even I believe, look, I only saw this in a group chat, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure even Taylor Swift came out and just said, vote for who you think is best. I'm pretty sure it was like today that she came out.
Yeah, it was on her Instagram.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So even she isn't attaching herself to Joe Biden when she endorsed him in 2020.
Now my question is this. Is it because he's not far left enough for them? Because it's like two things, right? It's good that he's losing support, but it's like if he's losing support because he's not far left enough, that's kind of worrisome.
I think for Taylor, I don't think that's what it is. I think Taylor is I think the only reason she inserts herself into anything is because it's self-promoting. And so
100%.
when you
make
look
another
at
billion.
Exactly. And if you look at kind of her demographic, she for a while was really catering a lot to the lefty stuff because it was what a lot of young people were. But we are starting, as Fabian had said earlier, we're starting to notice a bit of a shift. And along with that, she still has so many people from her, and especially because of her Eras tour, that were attracted to small town homegirl country. And when you have the people that are attracted to that kind of Taylor, to that kind of music, tend not to be, they're not necessarily the most conservative, but they're not the furthest left. They're not the pink-haired, ugly, gender-neutral, non-binary, whatever kind of people, snow cone color hair people. So
yeah,
she's got to play her cards right, and she knows that keeping them close to her chest is the best option.
And I've said this before, but I think if they're gonna have a figure on the left that is like a role model, I would pick Taylor Swift all day long over any of these other people that they've picked, because she's not going crazy left, like Kevin's saying. She hasn't been sleeping around with everybody. Sure, she's had a ton of boyfriends, but like there hasn't been anything crazy about her, right? It looks like her and Travis Kelce are probably going to get married. And if they do get married, it's going to create a huge marriage boom. And if they have a baby, it's going to create a huge baby boom. I guarantee I guarantee that when all of these Swifties go ahead and have babies, it is going to shift the way they think. Because I don't have any kids yet, but I've heard that when you have kids, it shifts everything in your life, because now your life is all about that little guy or little girl.
You know, I spoke to a buddy that's pretty close to Kelsey, and I said, dude, is it real? He's like, yeah. Now, how real? You know, obviously that's only something that he himself can answer.
Mr.
But
Pfizer.
it was interesting hearing that. Now, of course, that's not validating it, right? Like, we don't know if that's not just because he said yes doesn't mean it is. But you know, so I'm pretty close to him. Because I know, you know, I saw all of his girlfriends, you know, ex-girlfriends were all like black chicks with big booties or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I honestly, I don't follow them at all. So I just learned about like this whole thing a few months ago when I was in Dallas, Texas, and every commercial had Travis Kelce in it. I'm like, oh, I see what they're doing. American Express, I don't even know what the Pfizer shot crap,
State Farm,
State Farm, like everything.
Yeah. It's my one thing with the whole Swift thing when it erupted, I was like, conservatives or Republicans, like, stop bashing her down, because that's the wrong
It was so
play.
fun, though.
It was fun. I get it, and it's so easy to do. But
Yeah.
I was like you were saying, Gentry, I mean, like, you really made me think about it. Like, these Swifties and everything, they're not these far left crazies. They're like these girls that could care less about politics, like they care less about football. But like, when it's something interesting like Swift and football, they start to watch it. That's the same thing for them with politics. And yeah, so I think that, look, I think this will actually be good for conservatives, because they'll get married, they'll have a baby, all the people will start to realize, wow, a nuclear family, that's really attractive. Look at this traditional old school style family. So yeah, I think it could be great for us.
I think we're all you know, we're talking about Biden losing support. He's not going to be the nominee if they have their way, right? It's going to be Harris, Newsom, Harris, Big Mike. It's going to be Newsom, Michelle, whatever. It's going to be one of those things if they get their way. You know, we saw on James O'Keefe where the guy who's in a cyber crime division unit was literally outing Kamala Harris, saying everyone hates her. Like, all the black people on her staff have quit. Like, people hate working for her, right? So if you have that negative connotation around the White House, around everyone who is those lifelong bureaucrats, and she's wildly unpopular, she would get destroyed in any debate with Trump or anyone who could even speak English properly. She would get destroyed. You know, I know some 5-year-olds who could hold their own against her as well. I don't know what you do. Obviously, we know they're keeping Nikki Haley in as long as they can, because that's like this Hail Mary shot that maybe something will happen. I think they're trying 5 different things at once to get him out. They're trying everything. They're throwing every single thing at him, because they cannot have him. If Trump gets in office, their entire momentum is demolished.
Mm-hmm.
He instructs his DOJ to stop working with social media companies. He tries to disband you know, everything as much as he can. He tries to drain the swamp. All this is bad news. But now they've showed their hand. So once you've showed your hand and you've lose power, that hand that you showed can't move the chess pieces anymore. It has to go back into hiding. So they made this critical mistake where they didn't realize the populist movement that is happening, not only here, but also around the world, in Ireland, in Spain, in France. I mean, look, you say what you want about the French people. Those guys know how to protest. Like, holy hell. I honestly, I've never seen, you know, I'll never call them wimps again as far as protest goes. You know, the wars are different, but
I was going to say, because they'll let their entire country get run down in 2 days.
But they also do have a history. They also do have a history of going too far in their protests. I mean, the French Revolution is a perfect example.
Yeah, but they did give us Democrats and Republicans. They did give us the modern democracy that we have today. They did give us individualism. So I can't knock the French.
And the baguette. I mean, like, who can forget?
And the baguette.
Yeah.
The baguette.
Yeah, the baguette was pretty good.
Yeah.
I used to play Call of Duty like way back in the day. It wasn't like it was a World War II one, and I can't remember which Call of Duty it was, but
like
my favorite line in that was It was like the French are good at two things: kissing and surrendering.
Here's a whole country. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know I've seen jokes where it's like if you cut the two sides, the red and the blue, off the French flag, you get the real French flag.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So-
no, there's definitely a big populist reaction, and it's natural. Like, look, in 2016, everything that you saw with the Trump movement, that was a classic populist reaction to all the BS that both Bush and Obama brought with themselves, right?
Mhm.
08 was a reactionary movement to the bailout laws and all that stuff that they did, right? That got Obama elected. But Obama came in and totally 180 on everything he said. He became this globalist establishment figure for them. He was a plant, essentially. And
Yep.
so what's the right thing to do for that? Reactionary populist movement and that's what populism really is. And if you look into it deeper, it's a very thin ideology because it's just a reactionary to something. It then morphs into something bigger. For right wings, it's more nationalism, right? That's what we have with Trump's movement now. It's more of a nationalist movement. For the left, Occupy Wall Street, that turned them into like the biggest socialist that there is, right? Because it's a reactionary movement to the banks, and they have this socialist fundamental ideology behind it. So I don't think that it's possible to stop the reactionary movement happening across the world right now, because it's a reactionary movement to globalism. Argentina is a perfect example. El Salvador is a perfect example. All these countries, they're starting to take back their individuality, essentially creating themselves again as nation states. So, man, and that's exactly what's happening here in the U.S. again. It's like
I will say something about this though, specifically because you mentioned El Salvador and something came to mind. So so my parents are from Cuba and El Salvador. Okay, so I kind of know what's going on there in El Salvador. They just had this massive library open. I mean, this thing looks beautiful, paid for by the Chinese. Yep. So I see the tentacles starting to go in, and I've said this for a while. And Gentry, you definitely know that I've said this. How does a 30-something-year-old president destroy the most vicious gang in the MS-13 in just a few years? Like, I've been there. I understand. Like, when you're in El Salvador, there's a checkpoint with the Salvadorian police. You go one more mile, there's another checkpoint with the MS-13. And they'll casually say, oh, hey, that's a really nice necklace. And clearly, you know what they mean. So on every single, so basically, I have a bunch of tattoos on my arms, right? I have 2 full sleeves. And because of MS-13, one thing they do is they get all tatted up. When I was in the malls in El Salvador, people would stare at me because you can't really go into the malls if you have tattoos because they assume you're in a gang. The security guards would stare at me to make sure that my tattoos were not gang related. Every single tiny little mom and pop shop, and I mean every single one, had a guard with the shotgun, not 20 feet from each other. Every single one. That's how much the area my family is from. The ex governor, he was assassinated by the MS-13 because he didn't want to pay him money. That's how ingrained they were. Now you're going to tell me that this guy who's 30 years old or whatever, how old he is, and like, I thankfully he did it, right? I'm not saying I'm mad that he did it. How did he do it? How? I mean, really, really how? And now the Chinese are in there getting, building all this stuff. So that's the only thing that worries me about that. I'm glad it's peaceful, but at what cost, right? That's in El Salvador. I don't know how I got on this subject, but here we are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll tell you why it's happening with China so much right now. It's they're wanting to take over Latin America. They're wanting to take over Africa because of what we talked about previously. If they want to depend less on America, they have to establish a new market. And with Latin America and Europe, that's an incredibly large market. I think it's like a 2 billion, Latin America and Africa, that's about 2 billion people that they can essentially make a new market out of. America's not doing it. America has just poured money through all their social BS programs. Oh, let's throw money. They're poor. They need assistance. No, they're corrupt. They're going to take that money, help build their infrastructure, naturally the people will take everything back for themselves. And if that's what I had at CPAC, I came up to that protester and he was telling me about China. I just couldn't get it out because he was just going so hard. But I was like, well, if somebody has to do it, somebody has to come in and build some stuff. If it's not America, who it is? It's China. We're failing. We're failing.
My point I forgot to make about that, you're absolutely right. The people who went through the Cultural Revolution know how to do it best. China. What we are seeing here has never happened in America. Yeah, they tried it in the 50s, but not really, right? Nothing to this level. Who else would be able to tell them exactly how the playbook should go other than people that did it 70 years ago and are still in power? The CCP has the playbook. They did it. They indoctrinated millions of people. They got people to divide along class lines, and now we're dividing up, amongst imaginary lines that you make up in your head about whatever you are today. They understand that struggle sessions are when you are put on public display, shamed, and then recant for whatever reason, even if you don't think it is true, to fit in. They know how the game is played. They invented the game. So why do we think this is so organic? If the goal is to take over and shift the power to China or to the East rather than have it in the West like it's been, then the main culprit is going to be, clearly the person who has the most power on the East, and that is China.
Yeah, exactly. Like I always say, somebody has to do it when it comes down to these smaller countries, right? I'm not talking about India. Somebody has to come in. India got it. They got it. But El Salvador, Argentina, even, you really have to be curious. Who's coming in there to help them out and be their partner? If it's not America, 99% of the time it's going to be China. If it's not China, it's one of China's partners, which is just as bad as China. Iran, Russia, right? They're all coming in there to do something. Venezuela, but they can't do much.
Yeah. What are the updates on the votes, guys?
Yeah, I was just about to update. So we just had Colorado and Minnesota close for both Democrats and Republicans. The very first things to come out of Colorado has Nikki Haley up about 4,000 votes, 53.4% to 42.6%, 17,000 votes to 13,000 votes, or 14,000 votes, something like that. Moving to the next state that just closed. Where is Minnesota?
Let's see. I can add this here. We can check this out.
Yeah, there you go.
This kind of just has a running total of all the primaries. Right. Sorry, I guess it's delegate trackers. So Trump is crushing Nikki Haley. 276 to 43.
Yeah. And what we were talking about, Fabian, is that if you look at the reporting, he's crushing it above 60%, 70% in most cases, up to 80% in Oklahoma against Nikki Haley. So these are strong, strong numbers. And like what we were talking with the guys earlier, he's pulling moderates away from Nikki Haley, which is a great sign. That's one of the key things. We're looking at North Carolina, for example, a kind of purplish state. That's a good example of moderates starting to break away and starting to realize, okay, why would I waste a vote? Let me vote in the primary for Trump, which is going to translate to them voting for him in the general election.
Yeah, and this is interesting. In Virginia, he's beating her by the same margin, basically, amongst white evangelicals, Republicans, and whites with no college degree. And he's crushing her with very conservative, which is natural.
Yep.
So I know she lost the Koch brothers, right? They stopped funding her campaign.
Correct.
Last week.
Right after the South Carolina. If you're going to lose your home state, you're going to have every individual from the Senate to the House to the whole state, honestly, endorse your opponent, and you were the governor of that state, and then you end up losing that state by 40% or so. That should have been the biggest, get out of there. I just want to quickly report on this, that Joe Biden, with about 35% of the votes in, has 7.4% non-committed votes against him. At Colorado. It's about 15,000 votes so far. Again, these are big numbers. Seriously, in Michigan, it was 100,000 uncommitted. I'm waiting for these Minnesota numbers to come in. That's the true number I want to see, because that's where the biggest Muslim community is, and if they're the ones rejecting him the most right now.
No, that'll be
All right.
very interesting to see. One thing as we were talking a little bit about Nikki Haley again, she absolutely, if she was going to stay in as long as she has, getting out at South Carolina would have been the most honorable way to do so. Because that's why I had so much respect for DeSantis. He threw his hat in the ring. I'm sure a lot of people did tell him you should throw your hat in the ring. He had the entire pack of Never Back Down funding the vast majority of it with millions of dollars. And then
can't forget polling at 52%. That's insane.
Yeah. And then right after Iowa, he was like, well, I'm going to get out because the people have spoken. Donald Trump broke records with his Iowa caucus. I should get out. No reason to waste time, money, and resources on what is not going to work out. And so for Nikki Haley to still be in this, I feel like there's no way in her head that she believes she's winning, which means that there's only really nefarious reasoning behind her still being in there. And I'll never really know what that is. We will never really know what that is, but it sure is damn fascinating.
Has anybody stayed in this long with this track record?
With this track, no, but candidates have stayed in past Super Tuesday. Yeah. It's been much closer. I think 2016 is a great example of that with the Republican primary. They stayed in for that while. But I mean, look at the Democrats. They had a much closer primary in 2020 than Republicans did in 16. And after like the first or second state, and then all of a sudden they just all got behind Joe Biden. They all dropped out and then just endorsed Joe Biden. So even the Democrats don't have like something like that. You know, it's kind of crazy.
The other thing I was going to say is Nikki Haley is just not cool. Like Trump is doing something very smart. He's getting this coalition of cool people. He's got Vivek. Right, he's got people like Sean Strickland, who's, I mean, just met him. If you guys don't know who he is, he's my favorite MMA fighter.
You met him?
No, I haven't met him. But yeah, not yet. But right, he's reinvigorating these typical, just like real people that aren't afraid to say whatever they want to say, and people like that. I mean, when he goes out into these UFC arenas, 20,000 people. I mean, it is just insane the amount of applause that he gets. And I'm waiting for him to go on Joe Rogan. I know they're waiting till closer to the election to really give it a really big pop. I think that will be the largest interview ever in the history of humanity. 100%. I may be wrong on this, but I
go on Joe Rogan.
I think he will. I don't think he has a lot of reason not to.
I think Trump will go on Joe Rogan.
I think he should sometime soon. I mean, for a while it was Joe saying that he wasn't going to have him on, and then eventually he was like, you know what, maybe I will. We might talk. We'll see what happens. And it's kind of fizzled out since then.
Well, I think Trump was smart because he gave Joe Rogan time to red pill himself.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. By the way, I've answered my own question with ChatGPT. So some people who have stayed in until Super Tuesday with a losing record: Rudy Giuliani in 2008, Newt Gingrich in 2012, and then John Kasich and Ben Carson in 2016. Martin O'Malley on the Democratic side in 2016, and Bill Richardson also in 2008. So it kind of seems like that's it's kind of a trend, which is strange.
It's stupid again for Nikki Haley to do this, because if she's sitting there and saying Joe Biden is much worse than Trump, then stop acting as a Democrat. They're literally using her to do everything that the Democrats want to say to lower Trump's chances of winning the general election is what Nikki Haley is saying. So they're not even having to come out to say anything. They don't have to go on the airwaves to say anything. They're just literally using Nikki Haley for her. They clip her and then use her as ads. Trump spent so much money. Trump is chaos. Trump is old. I mean, stop. And now that you don't have a clear path forward, it's just every day. Again, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but it's getting so suspicious. Like, why are you staying in? Are you a Democrat asset? Are you going to be the Democrat nominee? Like what's going on?
No, there's got to be something to it. Like, it's because it seems incredibly odd And the weird thing is that all the pundits that are doing shows just like we're doing right here, except for they're getting paid millions of dollars to do it on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, anything like that. None of them are batting an eye at this. They're like, oh, well, it's obvious. They'll all say the obvious, that Trump is going to be the nominee. But no one ever is like, what is she doing? Like, nobody is actually asking that question. Nobody is saying, like, what are you doing? And then when a reporter, I'm sure that Nikki has got a question of like, you have no chance, right? She just pretends like that doesn't exist. Like, there's nowhere in there where she's like, man, like I really have we see or I recognize that Trump is winning a lot. Like, she never recognizes that, even when there's been multiple times where she has claimed that this was a 2-person race, when no polling data would show that.
I
nobody's
think I
asking
know.
this question. Why is nobody asking this question? It's pissing me off. Like,
Well, I think I know why she stayed in the race for this long. And I don't want to be cliche, but I think she's taking the elevated energy from the wellness company.
Oh,
I think that's
sponsor.
what she's taking. To be honest.
Oh, Gentry, wait, what did you got?
Elevated energy. Because
Wow.
here's what I do. I take this instead of coffee in the morning. Well, I also have coffee. I'm trying to get off coffee by using this stuff, but it gives me great energy and clarity. And if she's gonna be in past Super Tuesday, I guarantee you, this is what she's taking. This is from the wellness company, twc.health/breakaway. If you use code breakaway, you get 15% off. And I think this is what she's taking, to be honest.
Gentry,
Make sure you are
taking. Are you sure she's not taking this, Gentry?
There you go. I was gonna say that's
she does need a first aid kit to revive her campaign.
Exactly.
is there any aloe vera in there? How would you treat the burns she's getting?
So we do want to thank our sponsor, the Wellness Company. They're incredible. They also sponsor people like James O'Keefe, who really allow him to do those crazy things that he does and go and expose people. But the unique thing about the Wellness Company is not only do they create great supplements like the one that Gentry just showed, which they actually have something called spike support, which if you've gotten the ouchie Fauci jab, you may be still producing spike proteins that cause massive inflammation in your body. There is a way to reverse that. It's been shown, and they have a supplement called spike support, which makes your body stop producing these spikes proteins. It's one of the main irritants of what's called long COVID. But with their kits, it's really interesting because what they do, and I've never seen this done before, they actually have medicines inside the kits. So now they have things like contagion kits, medical emergency kits, this first aid one, but they have things like hydroxychloroquine, and they have ivermectin, and they have all these things that you actually need. And they have this little pamphlet that says, if you have inhaled this, then you need to take this much of this. It's a little pamphlet, which is really unique and really cool. So you get those medicines with it, but they have tons of other products. Shout out the Wellness Company for sponsoring us and making this show possible so that we can bring all of this news to you. So check them out. Code Breakaway will save you 15% off.
And if you want to be one of the best campaign staffers, go ahead and send one of these emergency kits. How about 10 emergency kits over to Nikki Haley's headquarters? I'm not sure if there's a heartbeat, honestly, in that headquarters tonight. So just check up on them.
Can you imagine their staff right now? They're probably just like, I mean, I don't know.
No, I know what they're doing, Gentry.
Just be like, what is going on, you guys?
No, they're all sending emails. Right, they're all sending emails to people they know on the Trump campaign, like, "Hey, do you got a position open for me?"
What I think? Actually, what I think they're probably doing is, I actually bet they're having a great time. You want to know why? Because there was no pressure. They knew they weren't going to win, and yet they still have millions of dollars in their bank account.
I don't know about you, Kevin, but I don't like losing no matter what.
No, but these people aren't like that's the thing, though, is to them they're not losing because it's not about
they're still winning. People, though. They're still people.
No, it's not about winning the presidency, though. Like, anybody who's still on this campaign does not actually believe that.
I think they do. That's why they're there. Otherwise, they would jump ship. It's a terrible resume builder. It's a terrible resume builder.
if they are more brainwashed than anybody I have ever met. Like,
That's
okay,
what I'm
brainwashed.
saying. That's what I'm
literally-
saying.
They literally thought, I promise you guys, they literally thought until yesterday's SCOTUS ruling that there's a chance that she'll be the nominee. They're like, Trump's going to go to jail. He's going to be off the ballots, yada, 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 all this stuff. In a single, like in a span of like 3 days, they got hit with the worst news possible. SCOTUS is pushing that one of those cases that has to do with the DC indictment past the election. That won't have any influence. And now they're saying that he can stay on all the ballots, 9-0 ruling, by the way. So Nikki Haley seemed to be like the only one rooting for this, along with the very far left Democrats. And that's it. I mean, yesterday was the end of their campaign.
They still have the immunity case that SCOTUS is going to see, apparently. So I think that's their last.
That's what they pushed after the election. So now,
they extended it already.
Yeah. So they're not gonna be. They won't like hear that case until after the election. I think like they will only hear that case in like January 2025. Wow. Yeah. I mean,
that's smart of them too. That's smart.
Yeah. So I think Nikki Haley's campaign ended literally yesterday with that Supreme Court ruling, and it's like Gentry said, what a terrible resume. If I was a political candidate running for office and it was like, you worked on Nikki Haley's campaign, no thanks.
Well, here's why I say it's a terrible resume builder is because last year I was really trying hard to get a job on the Hill because I wanted to go try to go make a difference. And obviously I'm fantastic at social media. That's my thing. I love content. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll go do comms, whatever. I got a couple interviews because I have friends there, and my resume was floated like all throughout there. But it was my lack of experience in politics and social media that is the reason why I didn't get a job. And I know, especially in Republican circles, the resume builder, especially in politics, is like a really, really big deal. And so if you like, I'm surprised that people even went to go work for the DeSantis camp for so long, because they're going to be seen as like black sheep, because there's a whole bunch of people in the Trump movement that are like, oh, you weren't loyal, so we're not going to hire you in the future. There's a kind of like a weird thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, these lifelong little like political campaign people, they hop from campaign to campaign to campaign. And
the
people
smart
need
ones,
people.
though, the smart ones choose the right ones.
The smart ones, no. You want to know the smart ones? The smart ones aren't working for the campaign. The smart ones are working for the consulting firms.
Boom.
The think tanks.
That's really what it is. The smart ones are working for the consulting firms, because because this is what everybody learned in 2022. I forgot the name of the firm, but there was one firm that was hired for like 30 to 40% of Republican campaigns in 2022. And
find out what that is, because we need
the BlackRock
to talk to them.
of Republican.
Yeah, and they lost, and it was like 75% of their races they lost, but they still made like millions of dollars as an organization.
Probably more than
and
that.
Then
and they're getting hired, and they're getting hired again this cycle. Like, and nobody's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that anymore. Like, no. So the smart ones are working for the consulting firms that are, because there's like, and the thing is even if you tried to like boycott them, well, then what we need a massive influx of support for every grassroots candidate, because these like the three consulting firms that have an oligarchy on helping out with campaigns, they're all with the RNC. They're essentially a part of like the Republican.
They're just an extension of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the RNC, which holds the concentrated wealth that is distributed into campaigns nationally, well, they will distribute it to the campaigns that they deem fit. And a way that they do so is they deem it fit by, if you have these consulting firms, if you're willing to play ball, if you're willing to not necessarily represent the people, but represent the will of the swamp.
So here's what I think we should do. I think for 2026, Breakway has a consulting arm.
That's a big. I don't think you realize how big of an undertaking that is. It's not impossible, but we absolutely could.
I mean,
I currently do work with a political consulting firm, a small grassroots one out of Illinois. I'm consulting a congressional race and a state rep race. And I can tell you it's not as easy as it sounds as just telling them what to do, because even if you tell them what to do, they're not going to do it.
Let me just go off for a second, because I cannot stand anything related to the RNC or anything that they do related to political consulting or political campaigning, whatever it is. The reason you lose is because instead of taking all that money that you're spending on luxury stuff like your limos, private jets, fancy bars, all this stuff, how about you pay the freaking people running the campaigns a little more than what it would cost them if they went to burgers at McDonald's? Because listen up real quickly. When the Democrats get paid $5-6K a month to be a freaking field director, which is just making sure that people are actually knocking on the damn doors. And then on the other side, Republicans are paying for the exact same job, $3,000 a month for an experienced political guy. You are out of your mind. No reason. We are losers. We are not well organized and we're not well funded. And all we do is just spend all of this money on useless stuff instead of just giving a little more money to people aged 21, 22, 23. They can actually make a living out of this. And guess what? You pay them a little more, you're going to make their lives better. They're going to actually want to do this stuff. So how about this? Well, how about we just double everybody's pay so that we can actually get people to want to work these jobs? You can take a cut on your limos and stuff like that. And look at that. We'll start to look like the DNC in a better way. Like, I like the DNC of how well organized and well funded they are. The RNC can be the exact same thing. So it just pisses me off.
Yeah, it's the same thing with cops and nurses and even teachers who are not woke. Like, if you're going to pay someone the bare bottom minimum to do a job that is arguably the most important job, which is teaching the next generation, then you get what you pay for. I have a friend who quit his job as a teacher. He was an English teacher. He loves teaching, but he can't survive, literally cannot survive paying it. He was working a second job at night to make ends meet. And I'm like, this is the worst. He goes, dude, I'm done. And he went and he went up north. I don't know what he's doing now, but it's sad that he had to resort to that. Because I remember when I was growing up, one of my teachers, I thought he lived the best life ever. He goes, you know what? I don't make as much as I would if I was in business, but me and my wife, who's also a teacher, we get to travel for 3 months out of the year. And then we come back and we work and we get paid. I'm like, that actually sounds pretty cool. This was in like the mid 2000s when, things weren't as crazy as they are now. So pay them more. They're going to be loyal to you. They're not going to hop ship at the first sign of, someone's offering them something on the, greener grass. And then you might actually have someone or guys, here's an idea. If you're in the RNC, you go, hey guys, we kind of burned the ship down. Turning Point, can you help us?
Right. Exactly.
For real. Well, there's that. And I can tell you, like, no one knows how to waste money better than a campaign. Like, maybe the government. I'm sorry. Nobody besides the government knows how to waste money better than a campaign. And the reason for this is simply because they want to argue about where every dollar is spent, and then they never actually look at the statistics. Statistically, the place where money is spent the least is usually around the things like of door knocking, like people that are going out and door knocking. You want to know what actually gets the most votes? Door knocking.
Nope.
But instead, they want to spend these $1 million contracts on Hulu advertisements and YouTube, and then they want to argue about where, like, they'll spend hours arguing about which color scheme to use for their logo.
It's stupid stuff. It's crazy. And if you haven't seen, just go look at that RNC report and look at the difference of how much they've spent on what. Yeah, and the waste compared to the DNC. I think the DNC literally spent like $1,000 or $2,000 on, like, I forgot what it was, but it was one of those luxury categories. And the RNC spend like 5-10 million. That's a big difference right there. I just want to give a quick little update. So with 1% in Minnesota, Joe Biden is sitting at 79.3%. You got about 10% for uncommitted and 10% for other candidates. With Trump, obviously that's what we're here for. We're at 76% to 21% in Minnesota, which is fantastic. I mean, again, Minnesota is not a conservative state, right? Obviously, we're talking about the Republican primary here. So we're talking about Republican voters, but Republican voters are not the same type of, or Minnesota Republicans are not the same type of Republicans that you have in Georgia, for example, in Florida, right? 70 something percent. What was it? 76% are breaking for Trump, which is incredible to see. I love that.
So I want to pull this up quickly. This is exactly what you were talking about, David. And when I saw this, I really couldn't believe it because I'm like, who in the right mind? Well, who in Ronna McDaniel's unright mind? Thank God she resigned. Are they doing? So let me kind of read this out. Total spending: RNC 128 million, DNC 156 million. So there's already a problem there being outspent. But then you look at things like, I want to highlight a few things. Limousine. RNC spent $263,000 on limousines. DNC spent $7,000. Media booking consultants, $116,000 RNC, $0 DNC. Floral arrangements, $70,000 for the RNC, $795 for the DNC. And this one is just crazy. Voter file maintenance. Okay, voter file maintenance. This is, I mean, it literally is what it says. $39,000 for the RNC and $235,000 for the DNC. Like, and then you go to management consulting, $1 million for RNC, $114,000 for the DNC.
What did I tell you? We spend all this money on the crappy consulting firms that continuously make us lose.
Like, what is this media booking consultant? What are you consulting? If you should go on Fox or should I not go on Fox? Should I talk to Breitbart? Should I not talk to, Ben Shapiro called me. Should I take his, what are you consulting? You're a political candidate. You should go on any single show you possibly can. There's no consulting needed for this. It almost seems like this is part of their like money laundering, like kickbacks. You know what I mean? Let me pay
absolutely.
them
I mean, like
and
think
that.
about it. When you look at the 2016 election, you had Trump, who was not really supported by the RNC, or like even while there, I guarantee there was some financial support. It wasn't that much, or it wasn't as much as they would have if it was Jeb Bush that had been the nominee. And Trump was outspent significantly by Hillary in 2016. However, if you look at the amount of unearned media time, or unpaid media time that he received, he got a crap ton. And I'm telling you,
over $1 billion.
Exactly. He would have outspent had you factored in the amount of unpaid media time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, and I doubt he had any kind of consultant for that. It was what David had said, is do whatever you can and make the story that he was very good at controlling and getting the eyes of all the media onto him, even if it was sometimes negative. It would be like, oh, Trump called Mitch McConnell a turtle or anything like that. Rah, 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 rah. Get them all to bitch and moan about it.
Yep.
Who cares? You're
and
on.
You know who did the same? Who does the same thing? Elon Musk. So many people don't know that there is no marketing department at Tesla. It's just Elon. So, and then if you factor in that you typically will spend, especially with a startup, up to 50% of all your revenue on marketing. Imagine how much more operating costs you have now to actually make the product that you're selling, rather than to convince people to buy it. So Trump and Elon Musk have very similar large personalities, very different deliveries in how they speak, but they understand media. They understand how to get eyeballs, and they understand how to deliver different products, but still delivering. So they are great marketers. Over $1 billion earned for free. And I do want to take a quick second and shout out again one of our sponsors, Freedom Water, who makes this show possible. Freedom20.com. They are a parallel economy company, which means that their company is based in the USA and has the same values that just really, really, and I was going to say conservative, but really most Americans now have that aren't on the fringes of these ideologies have. So they do great work over there. If you do want to check them out, you can check them out at freedom20.com, and you can use your code Breakaway for 15% off. Also, they have something really cool. They have a spray bottle, so you can spray liberal tears. It literally says liberal tears on it, and it's literally $2.99. So it's the best gift you can give someone or for yourself. It's gonna get hot because apparently we have climate change, but it's snowing like crazy. The water ain't woke. It's not gonna turn you gay, and definitely check them out. It's freedom20.com and Breakaway for 15% off $3 liberal tears water bottles.
And a quick little update for our Super Tuesday. So I know I've been paying attention more to the Democrat side than the Republican, and that's because we already know Trump is winning in a landslide. He's going to be the Republican nominee. It's just interesting to see the rejection from Democrat voters of Joe Biden. So I just said a few moments ago that Joe Biden was sitting right at 80% or so in Minnesota. And the reason I'm going to Minnesota is because it's the largest Muslim population in America, I'm pretty sure. So he's now down to 75% with 15% uncommitted, and then an additional 10% or so voting for an opposition opponent like Dean Phillips, for example, or something like that. And this is a trend happening across northern, like blue states, like blue wall, I would say, across Michigan, across Wisconsin. You'll see this, right? It's just very, very interesting to see. On the flip side of it, we have President Trump with Nikki Haley, right? Nikki Haley, where is it? It just went. Where are you at? Still standing strong at 75% to 22% in Minnesota. Great, great, great numbers. Seriously.
It's amazing.
It is. It is. Boys, we're coming up on 2 hours, so I think it's time to wrap things up, huh?
Might be getting close to that point. I can tell you I'm a little tired, but
a little tired. Hey, but you got your Freedom 2.0, so
I should have had Gentry's energy pills or whatever he's taking.
Yeah,
right.
Or here's a little quick tip. Put yourself on mute and scream at the top of your lungs and get all that adrenaline going, and then come back in ready to go.
That's a good way to do
works. You call it the silent scream.
Well, I just did it, and I can tell you, I'm a little bit more up now. I'm a little
David,
bit more
you should try it.
Well, I've been here all 2 hours.
That's great, guys.
We didn't all get our pump on right before this, going and working out, Fabian.
That's true. Exactly.
That's true.
Fabian could go on for a couple more hours.
By the way, guys, if you are in Vegas this weekend, we will be at Replatform Vegas. It's an incredible convention conference that basically pairs people who want to be or already in the parallel economy. So merchants, entrepreneurs, smaller banks, companies that have been deplatformed because of what they sell, because of what they say, because of what they believe. They are creating a new economy, what's called a parallel economy. If you don't know about it, it's incredible. Essentially, it's just the same products and services that you get from any other big market retailer like Target or Walmart. However, when you spend your money with them, you know it's not going to go to transition children or to all of these LGBTQ plus alphabet soup organizations like they do with Target and things like that. So we're going to support it. Breakaway USA will have a table there. So come say hi. We'll have some freedom water as well from you, so you can come taste some freedom, say hello to us. But it is the 8th through the 10th in Vegas this weekend. Shoot us a DM if you do want to attend, and I'm sure we can arrange a time and place that we're going to be, so we can tell you where in the convention we are. We do want to shout out our sponsors one more time: The Wellness Company, which provide incredible supplements as well as medical kits that actually have medicines in them, not just things that you can use just to patch up, whatever happens to you, which they also have. So shout out to them. They are sponsor James O'Keefe, who does incredible work uncovering these miscreant, these deviants, these narcissists and other people in this administration and around the pharmaceutical industry, etc. So shout out to them. Breakaway for 15% off, and Freedom Water, of course, for 15% off as well with the Breakaway code. Thank you to all our sponsors.
Thank you so much, guys. It was such a fun show. It was Breakaway Special Edition, Super Tuesday edition. We got the polls covered. We talked a lot of politics, a lot about 2024 general. I mean, we went everywhere. We even shouted out our sponsors. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for coming on. It was a great night. Thank you for everybody that listened. Share this with as many people as you can. Give a big old thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm, especially with the censorship. I mean, crazy stuff what we're going through. Follow us, connect with us, stay updated with everything. We got State of the Union that we're going to do this week as well, right? A little commentary. So stay updated for one of those updates. And
that one's going to be
night
funny
for me. Yeah, I can't wait to
Biden talking for an hour. Holy, like we'll see.
They're getting some of the best. Yeah, I was going to say they're getting some of the best drugs ready for him.
Yeah, I want some of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
maybe we can find out what they're pumping him with, and then the wellness company can sell that as a supplement.
Gentry can get on it too for some clean, healthy energy.
Yeah, you call it the Biden. Doesn't last long, but while it does, you feel great.
Whew.
That's funny.
No.
All right,
you guys.
fellas.
Right on. All right, you guys. Thank you for coming on, and make sure that you follow Breakaway_USA on Twitter and anywhere. We also have a podcast on Spotify and Apple iTunes. That's called just Breakaway USA. You just search Breakaway USA. We're doing a lot of things. We have a lot of short form content that we create on social media, as well as this longer form stuff like you are seeing now. We love that there's 103 people on X watching right now. That's incredible. Thank you so much to all of you sharing some of your time with us instead of watching other news like CNN and MSNBC, which I don't know anyone who watches that. But even other outlets, we really do. We have no barriers. We have no filters, as you probably saw. We're not owned by anyone. We don't have contracts with anyone that can dictate what we say. So you're always going to get raw, unfiltered news directly from our mouths to your ears. In addition to that, we have a new Telegram group right before we get out of here.
Yep.
We are so censored everywhere. I feel like Alex Jones right now. This is crazy. We are so censored everywhere. We just made a video making fun of it on our Twitter about how we're conservative content creators and we're so censored. But you need to get news out. And X is a great place for news. What we do is we curate on Telegram a lot of the best stories from around the internet, including X, and we give you the story raw and unfiltered. It's Telegram. You know what I'll do? If you add us on to X, I'm going to put a link there, or you can access it from our Breakaway USA Instagram account. But it's just a group where you can get really good news whenever it happens, all day long.
Absolutely.
So,
and make sure to check out all of our individual creators as well, whether you're watching, if you're currently watching on David's, or if you're watching on any of our Breakaway USA stuff, or even watching on my YouTube channel. We all have all of our stuff pretty much linked in some way. I'm speechless with Kev. I know David's got his own, if you want to shout any of those out, Fabian Lux as well.
Follow me, David, Kate, everywhere. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube. We're streaming on YouTube. So thank you, gang, for staying with us 2 hours. I don't think I've ever streamed this long on YouTube. So thanks for staying in there. There's a good amount of you guys that came up. So thank you. I call them the critical thinker army because they are.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you in the Telegram group and on the live streams once again, whenever we do it again.
Heck yeah.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
All right. See you, everyone.